this edition of Targets in Focus for 2012, I'm joined by John Cairns, a currency strategist at Rand Merchant Bank in Johannesburg. Hi John, so we're now into a new year, but unfortunately there is still a lot of volatility and uncertainty in the markets. Let's start with the cable. For the moment, how do you see the pound dollar performing in the short, mid and long term?
We take quite a positive view on sterling. I think it's been very heavily oversold in the past few years. And the UK is one of the few countries that is actually taking the necessary steps to resolve the fiscal problems and so on. And there are, of course, short-term impediments. It's quite possible, even likely, that we're going to see further quantitative easing from the Bank of England. And the economy is certainly weak, but the economy is doing better than Europe at least, so maybe some sterling gains, not just against the dollar over the course of 2012, but particularly against the euro as well.
What about for dollar yen? I understand you're expecting this pair to trade in a pretty tight range over the next year.
Yeah, so the Bank of Japan has signalled that its intention with repeated intervention. So while there's still a lot of risk aversion around, and so safe haven flows towards Japan, we do think the Bank of Japan will be able to hold out against those. And as the year progresses, reduction in risk aversion means some of that pressure for appreciation will ease. The Bank of Japan will then be able to step aside. So maybe in the latter part of 2012, a little bit of yen weakness, not just because of the situation on risk aversion, but also reflecting a bit of a stronger dollar in general as well.
Let's move on to discuss a commodity currency now. What are your forecasts looking like for the Aussie dollar, US dollar?
Well, we're looking for all the high-risk currencies to have a pretty good 2012. So Aussie is the most liquid of those. Our expectation is for Aussie dollar to bounce back to at least 107, maybe even 110 later in the year. Our views primarily driven by the expectations that the market worries over Europe will recede. Not necessarily that Europe's problems will suddenly be resolved, but rather that the markets will become more used to this ongoing situation. And so a bit less volatility, money coming back into the carry trade currencies, and so gains in the Aussie and associated currencies, so South African rand, New Zealand dollar, Turkish lira, Brazilian real, all of those are highly correlated, so all probably reflecting the same trends.
Finally then, John, to end, you mentioned the South African rand briefly just now. How are you expecting this currency to perform during 2012?
We're looking for a very strong rand in 2012, primarily based on two issues. First of all, it has been very heavily oversold relative to the other high-risk currencies such as Aussie, Kiwi, Brazil, Turkey, etc. But also then on this expectation that risk appetite will return, some of the funding stresses in the international markets will ease, and then decent domestic fundamentals, high interest rates, money coming back into emerging markets. So from dollar rand currently at around 8, just above 8, we think it can come right back to 7.20 by the end of 2012. It might well be the best performing currency in the world this year.
Okay, a very interesting point to end with. Thank you very much, John. Now stay tuned for more editions of Targets in Focus throughout this week, discussing a 2012 outlook for some of the most traded currency pairs. But for now, goodbye.